Texas, a land so vast and so wild that it was once its very own nation. From ancient native empires, to a desperate last stand, to oil and outer space. This is the complete history of the Lone Star State. Long before any flag flew here, this land belonged to its first peoples. For thousands of years, powerful nations called Texas home. In the east lived the Caddo, skilled farmers and traders. In fact, the word Texas comes from their word for friends. Across the southern coast lived the Karankawa. On the dry plains roamed the Tonkawa and the Apache. But one nation would come to dominate them all. The Comanche became the most powerful force on the southern plains. Master horsemen, they ruled a vast empire known as the Comancheria. For 2 centuries, they would shape the fate of Texas. Then, in 1528, the first Europeans arrived by accident. A Spanish expedition was wrecked on the Texas coast. A man named Cabeza de Vaca survived. For 8 years he wandered the land, living among the natives. He became one of the first outsiders to ever see Texas. His tales of distant cities lured more explorers. In the 1540s, Coronado marched north searching for cities of gold. He found only endless plains and no gold at all. Spain claimed the land, but for over a century left it nearly empty. Then a rival empire forced Spain to act. In 1685, the Frenchman La Salle landed on the Texas coast. He built a small fort, but it ended in disaster. Disease and conflict destroyed the colony. La Salle himself was killed by his own men. But his arrival alarmed Spain into finally settling Texas. Spain began building missions to convert the native peoples. In 1718, they founded a mission near the San Antonio River. They named it Mission San Antonio de Valero. One day, the world would know it by another name. The Alamo. A military fort and a town soon grew beside it. San Antonio became the heart of Spanish Texas. More missions spread across the land. For the native peoples, the missions brought faith, but also disease and hardship. Spanish Texas remained a quiet and distant frontier. Few settlers wanted to live in such a wild and dangerous place. Then, in 1821, everything changed. Mexico won its independence from Spain. Overnight, Texas became part of a brand new country. But Mexico faced the same problem Spain had. The land was vast, empty, and hard to defend. So Mexico made a bold decision. It invited Americans to settle. A man named Stephen F. Austin led the way. His father had won the first land grant, but died before using it. Stephen carried out the dream. Starting in 1825, he brought 300 families to Texas. History remembers them as the Old 300. The land was cheap, and the soil was rich. More and more Americans poured across the border. They brought cotton, and they brought enslaved people to work it. Soon the American settlers outnumbered the Mexicans, and tensions began to rise. Mexico grew alarmed at losing control of Texas. In 1830, it tried to ban new American immigration. The settlers were furious. Then a new ruler seized power in Mexico City. His name was Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. He crushed local freedoms and ruled as a dictator. The Texans had had enough. In October 1835, the revolution began at the town of Gonzales. The Mexican army came to take back a small cannon. The Texans raised a flag in defiance. It read, "Come and take it." The Texans won, and the war for independence was on. That winter, they captured the city of San Antonio. But Santa Anna was coming with a massive army. In February 1836, thousands of his soldiers reached San Antonio. A small band of Texans took shelter inside the old mission. Inside the Alamo stood fewer than 200 defenders. Among them were 3 legends. Jim Bowie, famous for his deadly knife. Davy Crockett, the frontiersman and former congressman. And the young commander, William Barrett Travis. Travis sent out a desperate letter to the world. He signed it, "Victory or Death." Legend says he drew a line in the sand. Those willing to die for Texas stepped across it. For 13 days, the defenders held against impossible odds. Then, before dawn on March 6th, the final assault came. Thousands of soldiers stormed the walls. The fighting was brutal and close. By morning, nearly every defender was dead. But Santa Anna had paid a terrible price in his own men. The Alamo had fallen, but it lit a fire across Texas. Just 4 days earlier, Texas had declared its independence. At a town called Washington on the Brazos, leaders signed the document. The Republic of Texas was born on paper, but its survival was far from certain. Then came another horror at Goliad. Hundreds of captured Texans had surrendered, expecting mercy. Instead, Santa Anna ordered them all executed. Over 300 men were shot. Terror swept the land in what was called the Runaway Scrape. Families fled east as Santa Anna advanced. General Sam Houston retreated, gathering his small army. Many thought he was a coward, but Houston was waiting for the perfect moment. On April 21st, 1836, he found it. At San Jacinto, the Mexican army rested, unprepared. Houston attacked during their afternoon siesta. His men charged screaming, "Remember the Alamo. Remember Goliad." In just 18 minutes, the battle was won. The Mexican army was shattered. The next day, Santa Anna himself was captured. To win his freedom, he signed away Texas. Against all odds, Texas was now independent. It became its own country, the Republic of Texas. For 9 years, the Lone Star flag flew over a free nation. Sam Houston became its first elected president. The young republic faced enormous challenges. It was buried in debt and surrounded by enemies. Its second president, Lamar, dreamed of a vast Texas empire. He founded a new capital and named it Austin. He also waged brutal wars against the native nations. The Comanche fought fiercely to defend their homeland. For years, the frontier ran red with conflict. The republic struggled, and many Texans wanted to join America. Finally, in 1845, the United States agreed. Texas became the 20th state. But annexation came with a price. It sparked war between America and Mexico. American armies marched deep into Mexico. When the war ended in 1848, the border was finally fixed. Texas now stretched to the Rio Grande. The state grew quickly on cotton and cattle, but it was built on the labor of enslaved people. And a great storm was coming. In 1861, Texas voted to leave the United States. It joined the Confederacy in the Civil War. Sam Houston himself opposed it. He was removed from office for refusing to support the rebellion. For 4 long years, Texans fought and died. Far from the main battles, Texas became a supply hub. The very last battle of the Civil War was fought here. It happened at Palmito Ranch, weeks after the war had ended. Then, on June 19, 1865, freedom finally came. Union soldiers reached Galveston with life-changing news. The enslaved people of Texas were free at last. That day is now honored across America as Juneteenth. After the war came the age of the cowboy. Millions of wild longhorn cattle roamed the open range. There was huge demand for beef in the north. So cowboys drove the herds hundreds of miles, along trails like the famous Chisholm Trail. The Texas cowboy became an American legend. Meanwhile, the last free native nations made their stand. The Comanche, led by Quanah Parker, fought to the end. By 1875, the Great Comancheria had fallen. An ancient way of life came to a tragic close. Then, in 1901, Texas changed forever. On a hill near Beaumont called Spindletop, the earth exploded. A fountain of oil shot over 100 feet into the sky. It was the largest gusher the world had ever seen. The modern oil age was born. Boom towns rose overnight from the dust. Fortunes were made in an instant. Great companies like Texaco and Gulf were founded. Decades later, an even bigger field was found in East Texas. Oil money built towering cities. Houston and Dallas grew into giants. But Texas also knew terrible tragedy. In 1900, a hurricane destroyed the city of Galveston. It remains the deadliest natural disaster in American history. Through depression and dust storms, Texans endured. During World War II, Texas became a giant military base. Soldiers and pilots trained across the state. After the war, Texas boomed like never before. A Texan named Lyndon Johnson rose to become president. Then Texas reached for the stars. In the 1960s, Houston became home to mission control. When astronauts flew to the moon, they spoke first to Houston. The very first word spoken from the moon was Houston. But the state also saw one of its darkest days. In 1963, President Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas. The whole world mourned. Through triumph and tragedy, Texas kept growing. Today, it is the second largest state in America, second in size and second in population. Its economy is so massive it rivals entire nations. From oil and cattle to technology and space. Cities like Austin became hubs of music and innovation. Millions of people from around the world now call Texas home. From the land of the Caddo to Spanish missions. From the Alamo to a republic of its own. From the oil fields to the surface of the moon. Texas has always done things bigger, and it has never forgotten how it earned that Lone Star. This has been the complete history of Texas. Follow for the complete history of every American state.